Hey guys, good now folks, this is Lucas from Whenever MTG, and once again I bring you another deck tech video. This week's winner is Orzhov Blade. Yes, it won with 31% of the votes. So today we shall talk about my favorite deck. Yes, I love this deck. It's been one of my favorites for a while. And it's been part of the Pauper environment for a while. Since the release of Tithing Blade, this deck became a powerhouse because with cards like Glint Hawk and Kor Skyfisher, we can keep on bouncing it back and recurring it, utilizing its value, endlessly. And with the addition of Refurbished Familiar, which you can recur with Glint Hawk and Kor Skyfisher, this deck just skyrocketed. It's a powerhouse. It does a little bit of everything, and I would say it's one of the it's one of the decks that it's prepared to deal with everything. It, like I said, it does a little bit of everything, and it deals with everything. It's just amazing the amount of value this deck can generate. And with the ban of Glee, I believe this deck rose. I won't say it's a tier 1 deck, but it's a solid tier 2. It's something you won't see every day, but you will probably see it once in a while. It's a deck that shouldn't be ignored. The amount of value it generates is just nuts. And, it's a fun deck to play. You just keep bouncing your stuff and replaying it. It's really annoying playing against it. But yeah, let's talk about the deck, shall we? So, hold on. Here's my list. Here it is. Let's go through it. So 4 copies of Glint Hawk, 4 copies of Novice Inspector, 3 copies of Thraben Inspector, so 7 of them. 1 copy of Feral Deathgorger. So this is a new addition from Tarkir, the latest expansion. Let me put this guy here. Yes. So here it is. It has one of the new Omen spells in it. So for 2 mana, you put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature and draw a card. And afterwards, you shuffle it into its owner library, so your library. And or for 6 mana, you have a 3/5 flying Death Touch creature. With when this creature enters, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. So in the beginning of the game, you're gonna pump your creatures and cycle. You're going to draw a card in the process. And in the late game, it's a 3/5 flying Death Touch creature. I would say that's very, that's very relevant. Death Touch is a powerhouse in Pauper. And flying, it's awesome. So yeah, I decided to try 1 because I think 1 is a good number. More of it would be kind of weird or redundant, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, let me push this guy away. So this is the only new card you might be seeing in, Orzhov Blade lists. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Kor Skyfisher, 4 copies of Refurbished Familiar, 2 Ephemerate, 2 Grim Bauble, 4 Cast Down, 3 Lembas, 1 copy of Omen of the Dead, 2 Thraben Charm, 2 Suffocating Fumes, 3 Tithing Blade, and 2 Mukotai Ambusher. So that's the main deck. Oh, sorry, the lens. 4 copies of Goldmire Bridge, 3 Ancient Den, 3 Vault of Whispers, 1 Bojuka Bog, 1 Contaminated Landscape, 1 Kabira Crossroads, 3 Plains, 2 Swamps, and only 1 Orzhov Basilica, the bounce dual land. So yeah, that's the main deck. This is like my latest version of the deck. You might see, different lists over the internet, but this is what I'm currently playing. So what does this deck do? Again, like I said in the introduction, it's a mid-range value deck. So it's not a go wide deck where you want to just play your creatures as fast as possible and be aggressive. For this deck, you have this tempo-ish and aggressive-ish touch. So you do a little bit of everything. There are matches where you can be aggressive. You can play, your inspectors or, your inspectors early on, followed by Refurbished Familiar, which you can recur with Glint Hawk or Kor Skyfisher. Just, keep, if your opponent's not playing any creatures, you can attack their hand. If they're playing creatures, you can go for Tithing Blade or Grim Bauble. If nothing's going on, you can play Lembas. So ideally, you want to, if your opponent is not playing any creatures, you want to generate value. So with you can play Lembas, your creatures like the Inspectors or Refurbished Familiar. And as soon as they start playing creatures, you can just kill them with Tithing Blade or any of the options we have here. So this is pretty much what the deck does. You just play your stuff, and as soon as your opponent plays something, you're going to react to it. Tithing Blade and Grim Bauble kills creatures, cast down, does the same, but it's an instant. So you have to keep it for the strongest creatures and, to try maybe to mess up your opponent's combat by killing their strongest creature and blocking the other ones. I think there's no big secret. Sorry, my throat's kind of weird today. And you might have noticed we have 2 copies of Mukotai Ambusher. So the way I see this card is like it's our 9th and 10th Kor Skyfisher / Glint Hawk. So it has ninjutsu. So whenever you have a creature unblocked during combat, you can return it to your hand and cast the Ambusher for its ninjutsu ability. Sorry, it's not casting, it's an ability, so it's not counterable. You can't counter it. Therefore, you can recur your inspectors or familiars or even Glint Hawk and Kor Skyfisher, so you can later on play it and just keep the engine going. It's a mid-range value generating deck. So you win by generating more value than your opponent, and just drowning them with your value. Usually, if you have Refurbished Familiar, it should be your priority to just keep on recurring it with the Hawk or the Skyfisher. If you don't have it, try to search for it with Lembas. So if you can't find it, just you still have plenty of options. But usually, just draining your opponent, attacking their hand and discarding everything. It's the best option to, get ahead in the game. And also, when they don't have cards, you draw cards with Familiar. So that's very broken, in my opinion. So I think I've covered everything. Please, if you have any doubts or questions, leave them in the comment section. But let's talk about the sideboard. I'm playing 2 copies of Hallow, 2 copies of Relic of Progenitus, 2 copies of Dawnbringer Cleric, 2 Dust to Dust, 1 extra Thraben Charm, 1 Campfire, 1 Prismatic Strands, 1 Thorn of the Black Rose, 2 copies of Arms of Hadar, and last but not least, 1 Okiba-Gang Shinobi. Okay, so why am I playing these cards? Orzhov Blade is quite slow. It doesn't kill. It doesn't win fast. And decks that win faster than us, for instance, Arachne's Madness or Mono Red Burn, they tend to have a great time against Orzhov Blade because we are slow. So to help with those matchups, we have Hallow, which is basically a 2-for-1 against burn. If they try to burn you can prevent it and gain life in the process. So that's just huge. On top of that, we have some life gain with Dawnbringer Cleric and Campfire. And on top of that, we have Prismatic Strands. That is, it's a 2-for-1. It prevents damage during 2 turns. So, yeah, it's a great tool against those decks. But on top of that, we have some Graveyard Hate with a Relic of Progenitus and Thraben Charm. Against affinity decks or artifact lands, we have Dust to Dust. Or you don't always have to screw your opponent's lands. You can also keep artifact creatures or some other valuable artifacts. Now, Dust to Dust is a must if you have access to it. It should be respected. On top of that, we have 2 Arms of Hadar against creature decks. So decks like Elves or Slivers or Boros Synthesizer or, the mirror matchup. You can always bring in Arms of Hadar to wipe your opponent's board and, keep developing yours. I think that's it. Sorry, 1 Thorn of the Black Rose. Usually I bring that one in against mid-range and control matchups where I need to be able to generate more value. And I think, if you're able to play Thorn on turn 4 and your opponent can't really do anything about it, you win, my friend. Because after that, you're just going to control the game and you will be generating more and more value than your opponent. Another card that I usually bring in against mid-range and control is Okiba-Gang Shinobi. I wouldn't play this guy in the main deck. I've seen lists using it in the main deck, but it's quite risky. It's the ninjutsu ability is 4 mana. It's quite expensive, and you will never... There's no way to know what you're playing against. Therefore, in some matches, it might just die in your hand. So I think it's great against mid-range and control, so you can, get ahead in cards and keep disrupting your opponent. But in aggressive matchups, it's just trash. It's not a good card. I think I've covered everything. Let's talk a little bit about the good and bad matchups, okay? Like I said, with the ban of Glee, with Glee being banned, this deck kind of rose a little bit. Again, I wouldn't say it's a tier 1 deck, but it's a solid tier 2. It has some bad matchups, but they are all very winnable. How can I put this? Whenever I'm playing this deck, I don't feel like, oh my god, I can't win against this particular deck. For instance, I used to play a lot of Arachne's Madness, and against Gru Ramp, it feels unwinnable. Doesn't matter how good my hand is, they just keep winning. But with this deck, with Orzhov Blade, I don't have that kind of feeling. I think I have all the tools to deal with everything. I just need to draw them. And I don't feel unsafe playing this deck. But anyway, it does have bad matchups where, you do feel like you need your sideboard to win the game. So bad matchups. Arachne's Madness and Burn and Mono Red Burn. Those tend to be bad matchups for us because we are pretty slow. We won't win the game fast enough, and they have all the time in the world to draw their cards and just burn us to the ground. And on top of that, we play Refurbished Familiar. It's great against the mono red burn, but it sucks against Rakdos Madness. A good Rakdos Madness, as soon as he sees your mana base, he will understand what's going on and will play accordingly. So they will always leave mana open in case you play Familiar, so they can discard a card and play it for its madness cost. Or just discard like Sneaky Snacker, which they can they can later, get it back. But yeah, game one's very tricky against those decks, but it's winnable. And with our sideboard, we should feel safer. Another huge bad matchup is Tron. Again, this deck's quite slow, and Tron has all the time in the world to assemble whatever it is that they need. They can just keep looping their stuff, and there's nothing you can do about it. A great way to win the game is by finding all your familiars and try to discard their hand as fast as possible, and try to get ahead by doing that. But usually is a bad matchup. And I haven't dedicated many cards in my sideboard for that specific matchup because Tron hasn't shown up in my local game store. So, I've seen some matchups, but I like people playing, but I myself have never played against Tron. But I know how it works, and I know it works perfectly against Orzhov Blade. So, yeah, if you're ever matched against Tron, just prepare yourself for a very boring game. What else? High Tide is a bad matchup. Again, same principle. We're slow. They have all the time in the world to assemble their pieces. It's a tricky matchup. It's winnable, especially if we attack their hand with Refurbished Familiar. But game 2 tends to get better. We have, for instance, Campfire, which is a great tool against them. We can shuffle our graveyard back into the library, but it's only one copy and we have to draw it. So yeah, it's a bad matchup and there's not a lot we can do about it. I haven't seen many High Tides lately, especially not in my local game store, so that's why I haven't dedicated more sideboard cards against it. But if you're dealing with it, bring in more Duresses. That will help you against that matchup. And don't forget to include Okiba-Gang Shinobi in this matchup. They shine by, your opponent won't do anything about your creatures, so you can attack them freely. And once you have 4 mana, you can attack with something, bounce it back to your hand, put Okiba-Gang Shinobi in play, attacking, discarding 2 cards at once, and that's game over because they're losing 2 cards a turn. It's way too much for them. So yeah, I believe those are the bad matchups. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the good matchups. The deck has a very good time against mono blue fairies. Of course, you have to be careful. You have to time your cards right. But, we have plenty of flying creatures that can block their creatures very well. Usually, fairies have 1/1s, 1/2s, and maximum 2/2s. Therefore, all your creatures block theirs very well. It's hard for them to assemble 4 fairies so they can counter Refurbished Familiar with Spellstarter's Sprite. Usually they're going to need counter spells for that. But if they lower their guard, we can catch them off guard with a Grim Bauble, recurring it with Glint Hawk and Kor Skyfisher. So of all the matches I've played against Monoblue Fairies, I've always had a decent time against it. Yeah, you have to time your cards right, but all in all, it's a great matchup for Orzhov Blade. Another good matchup would be Boros Synthesizer. I think all in all, both decks, they try to do the same thing, but I believe this deck has a more mid to late game advantage. We have way more, let's say, removals, so we tend to control the game better, and we have Refurbished Familiar, which in this matchup, in this particular matchup, it's a great thing because we're always going to have attackers in the air, and we're going to deal with their hand. So we generate value. We also draw cards, but we disrupt them a lot. So all in all, I think it's favorable for the Orzhov Blade. We have to watch out that Boros Synthesizer has a lot of burn spells. Well, not a lot. They have 8. So 4 bolts and 4 galvanic blasts. So 8 life is not a large amount of life. Yeah, we have to watch out for that. But all in all, we have all the tools to deal with it. I would say the matchup is favorable because we have a better late game. Yeah. Another great matchup would be, creature decks, tribal decks, like elves and slivers. Usually, they don't pack anything to interact with us, so we can just, run away with murder by casting Grim Bauble, killing whatever we want, and recurring it with Kor Skyfisher and Glint Hawk. Tithing Blade has the same idea. We just keep killing their creatures. And we attack them in the air, so it's hard for them to do anything about it. Yeah, usually it's a great matchup for Orzhov Blade, both elves and slivers. Well, I haven't talked about some of the Tier 1 decks, like Jund Wildfire and Grixis Affinity. Those decks are okay-ish for Orzhov Blade. Those decks tend to draw way more cards than us, so they generate way more value than us, but they don't run that many creatures. And on top of that, we fight fire with fire. We have Refurbished Familiar, which means we can, kind of play the same game as they're playing by discarding their hand a lot. But the thing is, we can recur Refurbished Familiar a lot more than them. We have 8 copies of Bouncers, like Kor Skyfisher and the Glint Hawk. Well, 10 with Mukotai Ambusher. So usually we discard their cards a lot more than they can do. So all in all, it's an okay matchup. I wouldn't say any of the decks has a better chance of winning. I think it's like 50-50. It depends pretty much on your opening hand. But I don't feel unsafe against those decks. It's usually I feel very comfortable playing Orzhov Blade versus those decks, but anything can happen in Magic. I think I may have forgotten to mention Guru Ramp. It's a bad matchup for the Orzhov Blade, but it's winnable, but bad. Grim Bauble doesn't kill anything but elves and tokens. Tithing Blade kills tokens because they rarely, very rarely, they won't have tokens to, sacrifice. So basically, we have 4 cast downs and 2 Thraben Charms to deal with the most important creatures. Like I said, it's not unwinnable, but it's a very tricky matchup. It's very weird for Orzhov Blade. You will start, let's say, winning. You will have a good beginning of the game, but once they reach turn 3 or 4, or if they manage to have an elf plus a land full of enchantments, you know, things can get harsh. Things can get hard very fast. Because they're going to be playing, you know, big creatures every turn. They're going to have tokens to back them up. So Tithing Blade will suck in this matchup. Again, we have the tools. We have Suffocating Fumes to clear the 1/1s and tokens. So then Tithing Blade can, you know, can tackle something important. We have Cast Down, but they have way too many creatures. All in all, you know, it's a bad matchup, but winnable. Our sideboard is very well prepared to deal with them. We have Dawnbringer Cleric to destroy their enchantments, and that's very relevant because we can keep on recurring the Dawnbringer Cleric with Kor Skyfisher or the Mukotai Ambusher, which means we can always deal with their enchantments. We have an extra Thraben Charm, which works as both removal spell and enchantment removal. And if you think the game might go long, meaning if you're on the play and you have a good opening, you could consider playing Thorn. I mean, that card will generate a lot of value for you while you're defending yourself. And, you know, it trades against everything while generating cards. I wouldn't say it's a bad card against Gruul. It's definitely not great on the draw, but on the play you could consider it. On top of that, we have Hallow and Prismatic Strands against Gruul. And that's very relevant because usually on game 2 and 3, they're going to pack the Breathe weapon and, you know, deals 2 to everything, those sort of spells. So that's a great, those cards are great tools against their sideboard. But if they feel like they don't need that, it could be like a wasted card. So Hallow doesn't do anything unless a spell does damage. So, you know, if you feel like they're going to pack that, if you feel like they're going to bring in Breath Weapon or what is it called again? Fury Cannonade. If you feel like they're going to bring those cards in, then yes, Hallow and Prismatic Strands will help. So, guys, I think I've covered everything. The video is quite long already. Yeah, if you feel like I left something out, if you want to know about a specific matchup, please leave some comments in the comment section. I hope you have enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.